Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown, the baseball team hosted Marist this past weekend. We break down their successes and failures. And we look at the men's lacrosse team and if their season could be in jeopardy. Plus, which spring sports team has been the most successful. Stick around for Bobcat Breakdown starts right now. Hello everyone and welcome to Bobcat Breakdown, presented by QU Online. Finish your degree early with online summer courses. I'm Mike Dalton and I'm here with my fellow colleagues Chris Dacey and Kyle Lavasser. Gentlemen, how are we tonight?
Excited to be here. How about you, Kyle?
Spring sports, my favorite season of the sports here. I'm so excited to be here, Mike.
Let's start the night off by talking some baseball. The Bobcats swept Marist over the weekend, winning all 3 games by a combined 7 runs. Kyle, we'll start with you. What do you think these wins mean for the Bobcats?
Well, it's obviously a huge weekend for the baseball team. Whenever you get swept to start MAC play, you have to come back the next week with all cylinders firing, and that's exactly what the baseball team did. By sweeping Marist, it brought them back to 500 in MAC play, and to me, it's really just a confidence boost for this team. A team that didn't make the playoffs last year, they have to get off on the right foot. If they don't win this series, then they're just way far behind in the standings at the beginning of the season, and that's just tough to pull out of. And for me, the pitching was much, much better this weekend. They allowed 4 runs, 2 runs, and no runs in those 3 games, and head coach John Delaney was just ecstatic about the pitch quality of this team.
I'd have to say the same thing, Kyle. It was a great bounce-back series for the Bobcats after what happened last weekend to Monmouth. They didn't have the pitching they needed to get it done. Monmouth, it was a rough 3-game series against Monmouth. It was a great bounce back. Obviously, they swept. Definitely the pitching was improved. Even the head coach said that he was very happy with the pitching. And all around, good. Get back to 500, for this baseball team. Great moving forward in MAC play.
And moving on, Chris, do you see a clear ace for this Bobcat team?
Right now, Mike, I don't. Last weekend, it was just against Monmouth, like I said, the 3 games, starting pitcher, 1.5 innings pitched, 9 hits, 8 earned runs. Game 2, 1.2 innings pitched, 5 hits, 7 runs. And then game 3, 1.3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 6 earned runs. That was last weekend. And then you look at this weekend, it's completely different. 7 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs in game 1. Game 2, they got the win. It was a 2-0 shutout. And then game 3, 6 inning pitch, 4 hits, 0 earned runs for the starting pitcher there. So right now there's no ace. There's just no consistency with the pitchers. Obviously, there's only been 2 MAC series so far. We're going to have to go deeper into the MAC play to see if there is a clear ace that decides to come out. But right now, there's no ace for this team right now. They're still looking for an identity, no ace. What about you, Kyle?
Chris, it's only been 2 MAC series so far, but I have to agree with you. This team is screaming that there's no ace. Robert Hitt is their best starting pitcher, but he allowed 8 earned runs versus Monmouth. How can you expect your best starting pitcher to compete in those type of games? You also look at their other pitchers. Taylor Luciani, I believe he's their 2nd best pitcher on the team. He couldn't get out of the 2nd inning versus Monmouth.
Exactly.
And when you look at other great starting pitchers around the MAC, you look at Fairfield's Gavin Wallace. He has a MAC best 2.15 ERA over 6 starts. You look at Canisius's J.P. Stevenson. He has a 2.49 ERA over 7 starts. And then Niagara, they have 3 starters with ERAs under 2.68, and they even have a 4th starter in case they need him, and he has an ERA of 3.30. If Quinnipiac doesn't have a starter with an ERA better than any of those 4 Niagara pitchers, how can there be an ace? You have to have an ace that dominates the games, takes over, and you have confidence with in the playoffs. If they can't even get out of the 2nd inning or less than 8 earned runs in a regular season game, then I can't have confidence in them moving forward.
They did have their struggles in Monmouth, but I would say Marist was a nice bounce back weekend, but still there is no clear ace. Like you said, there needs to be one if this team wants to make the playoffs.
Kyle, as of right now, what are the chances of making the playoffs for the baseball team?
It's going to be tight for them to make the playoffs, Mike. I feel like it's too early to tell. There's 18 games left in the MAC. regular season. So it's really early, and I haven't really seen much of an improvement from last year. And they really need that ace if they're going to need it. They're not a very good fielding team. They have the most errors in the MAC with 39. That's 7 more than any other MAC team. They're a middle-of-the-pack hitting team. They score the 4th most runs in the MAC, have the 5th highest batting average. So they really need an ace, and I don't really see that happening. Their team is built so that they shorten the games from the back end. They have a great bullpen with closer Mike Davis. He's been excellent this year. He has a .66 ERA over 11 games. He's been excellent. 5 saves, 17 strikeouts, only 1 walk. So their bullpen is solid. They also have Chris Enns and Blake Dakar. Those are solid middle relief pitchers. But you really need pitching in the MAC. Here's a quick fact. 6 of the last 7 MAC championships, the champions only surrendered 2 or less runs in that championship game. That just shows how crucial it is if you want to reach that end goal of winning a MAC championship, which obviously that is each year for this team.
Kyle, I have to agree with you. It is really early to tell. There's only been 2 series so far in the MAC, but you have to have a little bit of a worry because that Monmouth series. Monmouth is ahead of them right now. They are tied. They're middle of the pack right now. They're in that 6th position right now, but it is way too early to tell. But I cannot agree with you more. They need an ace. The relief pitchers have been excellent. They've done their work when they needed to get their job the job done. Batting, I mean, like hitting, it's been all right. They need a little bit more offensive production wouldn't hurt, but right now it is way too early to tell, in my opinion. I need to see them. Their upcoming schedule, they have a 3-game series against Niagara, which is the first-place team. That will tell us a lot, I feel like, with this team and their preparation. And they got Iona College right after one game against Hartford. So those are 2. Iona's a middle-of-the-pack team right now, and Niagara also in first place. So after those 2 series, I feel like we'd have a lot better understanding of where this team stands on if they'll make the playoffs, if they have a chance to make the playoffs, or is it going to be like last year and they miss out on the playoffs completely? Well,
here's the thing, Chris. They just need a pitcher to keep them in games. I mean, Monmouth, they lost 17-7 one game. When you score 7 runs, you should at least be competing. You shouldn't ever be losing by 10 runs when you score 7. So they just need a pitcher that will step up and at least keep them in the game, throw a solid 5 or 6 innings per game without allowing 8 runs.
Just like the Marist game, you had 3 solid starts by these pitchers. If they pitch like they did in Marist, they'll be all right, in my opinion.
All right, and Chris, we will end the discussion with you. What does Quinnipiac accomplish for this season to be a success?
Well, so you're asking me what they need to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, if they pitch like they did against Marist, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll have a solid year. They'll make the playoffs if they pitch like they did against Marist. They have, like you said, Kyle, these starting pitchers go a good solid 5, 6, 7 innings. They'll be great. And then what they need to do is they do need to improve on the offensive side of the ball. And they need to, and like you said, they have the most errors. Well, obviously improve on that. How can a pitcher be good if the defense behind him? A pitcher is as good as his defense, in my opinion. So they need to cut down on the errors, maybe get a little more runs on the board, and then I think they have a great shot of making the playoffs. Obviously, that 3 games against Monmouth early in the year hurt them, but I feel like it is early enough they can bounce back from that.
Yeah, it's tough because they have a couple key players they're losing to graduation after this year in Matt Batten and Joseph Burns, the 2 top hitters on the team. So it's tough. I mean, you have a couple younger kids with Brian Mosky, Liam Scarfiello, who leads the team in home runs, even though he's striking out consistently. Yes. He's got a lot of potential.
He leads the team in strikeouts, actually, 50 strikeouts.
He's striking out more than twice a game, so he's got to cut that down. But the power is excellent. I mean, it's off the charts. He's only the 12th Quinnipiac player to ever hit more than 10 home runs in the year, and the season's not even, it's about halfway over. So there's plenty of potential there, and he has 2 more years. But they just need to improve on their pitching. I mean, they need to find someone that's going to compete for the next few years.
And coming up on Bobcat Breakdown, we get an update on the women's lacrosse team, including a live interview with Alex Leshak. And could the men's lacrosse team's season be in jeopardy? We'll have the details on that and more after the break.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
And welcome into Studio 125.
So what?
So what? If you score 40 points in a basketball game, we all know you play Quinnipiac intramurals. We all know you love to shoot the rock.
Well, if you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, what I'm about to say, I guess, is going to be pretty ridiculous in your book. But I'm going to say yes, there is a controversy.
Line, getting ready to punch the ball as it lands right in front of another Monmouth player.
It's 9:30 Eastern, and you know what that means. Sports Pause is on the air.
Left ball played up the middle. Emmanuel with a little cheat off the play. Preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before.
MJ, it is time for our favorite part of the show. It's the top 5 plays of the week, brought to you by B&D Deli, home of the Q-Dog.
Let's talk about the first play you want to break down.
Yeah, let's break it down right away.
But the one name I'm going to throw out there is a freshman, Mika Maples.
Coming up
on hashtag that.
We are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news. All this and more.
Coming up on the Q30 Newscast.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
And welcome into Studio 125.
Score 40 points. If you score 40 points in a basketball game, we all know you play Quinnipiac intramurals. We all know you love to shoot the rock.
Well, if you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, what I'm about to say, I guess, is going to be pretty ridiculous in your book. But I'm going to say yes, there is a controversy.
Line, getting ready to punch the ball as it lands right in front of another monument player.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown, presented by QUN Online. Finish your degree early with online summer courses. The women's lacrosse team came into the weekend on an 8-game losing streak. However, the Bobcats were able to get back to their winning ways, earning a come-from-behind 12-11 win over Manhattan. Now, Kyle, what is the state of this women's lacrosse team right now?
Yeah, it's interesting, Mike. I think this is one of the most exciting stories on campus because they have a new head coach. They just won a MAC game against Manhattan, 12-11, with only 20 seconds left on the clock. There's a lot of younger players on the team. I'm excited to see how they do in the next few years.
All right. And we have senior midfielder Alex Leshak of the women's lacrosse team in studio for a live interview. She is standing by alongside our own Shane Dennehy. Shane, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mike. We are joined live in the piazza with Quinnipiac women's lacrosse midfielder Alex Leshak. Alex, thank you for joining me. Okay, so how much should being picked to finish tied last in the preseason poll motivate you and your teammates?
Well, at first, finding out that we were tied for last, we weren't surprised. We were there last year. We knew how our season went. But definitely hearing it again, it was a little bit disappointing. But then the next day at practice after the preseason awards, our coach was like, "This is the best news we can ever get. We have nothing to lose. We have so much to prove, and you guys should be excited to get out there and prove everyone wrong." And I think we definitely took that to heart, and we've been working hard ever since. And I think we're just motivated to prove everyone wrong.
All right, so you're a senior this year. You're playing under your third head coach. How much has new head coach Tanya Kotowicz really changed the culture of this program? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of the hashtag 32 strong really with your team, combining the team and the coaches. How much has she really changed the culture this year?
The culture is very team oriented. We know now, any accomplishment that we've ever had, we can't do it without everyone else on the field, everyone on the sideline. We're not, I know in the past a lot of people were focused on playing time and stats, and now we're more of a unit, definitely more unified. Our new coach, she has these 3 pillars that we all go by. It's effort, attitude, and commitment to the team. And I think we always have those in the back of our heads, and I think it motivates us to do better and do better for each other.
All right, so you talked about stats a little bit. You scored in 8 straight games. You lead the team with 18 goals, and you set a career high with 5 goals against Fresno State. What goal did you set with the amount of goals you wanted to score this season?
I didn't really have a goal. I think definitely the biggest thing in the forefront of my mind is winning, getting to the playoffs, getting to the MAC tournament. And I think that also as part of our new culture is I mean, it's great to score goals. Like, it's really fun scoring goals. Like, there's no denying that. But I, like, at the end of the game, like, I know that like this, as like Fresno, I could not have scored those goals if I didn't have my teammates trusting me, if I didn't have them clearing through. I think something about lacrosse is that people don't notice how much work the people off ball put in to make the person with the ball look good. And it's a lot of trust and a lot of team chemistry, and I think our team chemistry has gotten a lot better.
All right, Alex, thank you for joining me. Good luck with the rest of your season.
Thank you.
Mike, back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Jane. And speaking of lacrosse, Chris, Kyle, the men's lacrosse team is 1-2 in the conference after going undefeated in MAC play last season. Will they make the playoffs this year?
I'll get things started with this, Mike. And it's interesting that we're even talking about this, considering they were so dominant last year, going undefeated in the MAC, winning the playoffs, and facing #1 in the country, Maryland, in the NCAA tournament. And when I first heard this question, I was like, well, of course they're going to make the playoffs. But it's not that simple. I think they will make the playoffs because there's only 7 teams in the MAC, and the top 4 will make it, and they're currently sitting at 4th. I broke the MAC into 3 different sections: teams that are going to make the playoffs, teams that are on the bubble, and teams that will not make the playoffs. Monmouth and Detroit Mercy, who are both 3-0, are almost guaranteed to make the playoffs. Canisius, Quinnipiac, and Marist, who are in 3rd, 4th, and 5th respectively, are all on the bubble. And then Siena, who is 0-10 this season, and Manhattan, who is also 0-3 in the MAC, they're not going to make the playoffs. So it leaves Canisius, Quinnipiac, and Marist. When you look at the rest of their schedule, Quinnipiac plays Marist, which is a bubble game, seeing that Quinnipiac is 4th and Marist is 5th. So they're both on the outside. Quinnipiac's on the inside, Marist is on the outside. The game is at Quinnipiac, so Quinnipiac...
It's at Yale. Actually, they don't play.
Well, Quinnipiac is the home team, so...
It's not at Quinnipiac, though.
They will be playing Marist at their home field, and that's really the biggest game of the season. They then face Siena, which is basically an automatic win, seeing that Siena is 0-10. And then they face Canisius, which is another team on the bubble. It's the last game of the season. I think they're really going to turn their game up for that. But when you look at Marist's schedule, they face Quinnipiac on the road. Then they face Manhattan on the road. Then they have a home game finally, but it's against Detroit Mercy, a team that is undefeated in MAC play, so they'll probably lose that. And then Siena, that is another automatic win, basically, since they're, again, 0-10. So Marist, yeah, maybe they'll beat Manhattan, but I still don't see them getting enough wins to surpass Quinnipiac.
All right, Kyle, let's not sugarcoat this. They need to win out to make the playoffs. I don't care what team.
They need to win out?
Yes, they need to win out.
They just need to beat Marist, but I want to hear what you got to say.
They have to win out, all right, Kyle, because, listen, if they don't beat Marist, first of all, because Marist is 0-2 in the conference so far, they've had a rough year. They're last in goals per game. They're last in assists per game, last in man-up.
It's only 2 games, though.
Yes, but I'm saying, Kyle, is just not a good. So if they don't beat Marist, I don't think they make the playoffs. Siena is 0-10. Like, I agree with you. I think they're going to beat them. Siena is also having a rough year. Canisius, though, that's going to be a problem. They're first in goals per game, first in assists per game, first in points per game, best shooting percentage in the MAC, and they're first in man-up scoring. They take advantage of their chances when they get them, and they score. That's what you need to win games. I don't know if Quinnipiac has what it takes to beat Canisius. They've been struggling this year. Obviously, like they won all their games last year. They need to win out to make the playoffs.
They really don't need to win out, though. That's the whole thing, because Marist is really a 2-part game, because if Quinnipiac wins, that means Marist is an automatic loss, and the tiebreaker is head-to-head game. So if Quinnipiac beats Marist, they'll have that head-to-head tiebreaker.
All right, well, Chris, what is the biggest difference from last year for the team, and why are they struggling right now?
Well, other than winning all their MAC games last year, the biggest difference I would say is maybe some of the defensive struggles. Like when I was watching that Detroit Mercy game, there was 2 separate times, Kyle, I saw when there was a fast break by Detroit Mercy and no one picked up the ball. There's a communication issue there. I play lacrosse, so I know that's a communication issue. The goalie, Jack Brust, he won the MAC last year. He knows what he's doing. I don't think it is Jack Brust. I think it's the defense needs to come together as a team and communicate. You can't have one guy come down, right down Broadway, and have him go against your goalie one-on-one. Jack Brust saved one time, but the second time it went in. Like that's just, you're not going to win that way. And that's not a playoff team right there. You need to be sound on defense. Other than that, I would say the biggest difference has to be Ryan Keenan on this team. He was the rock last year. He led the team in assists with 18. He had 51 points last season. Also, those 18 assists were on We're a team high. He also got drafted to the NLL last year. He also Quinnipiac lost in the graduation. I say that was the biggest difference for this team, other than the obviously not winning the games. What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, Chris, I got scared for a second. You weren't going to bring up Brian Keenan because he's one of the best players to ever come through Quinnipiac. He had 33 goals and 18 assists last season, and he is the biggest difference from last year's team to this year's team. He just adds another weapon to this offense. I mean, Brian Feldman has been excellent this year. He finished the season last year with 36 goals. He's on track for about the same as he has 26 goals this season.
Just got 100 career points.
But when you look at the next highest scorer on the team, they only have 9 goals.
Exactly.
So if you know that Brian Feldman is the one scoring, of course the other team's defense is going to focus in on him because no one else has been scoring. Obviously, having Jack Brust having a concussion for the majority of the season, yeah, that's not good. I mean, his goals against average when he is playing is just under 12, where it was about 8.5 last season. So that, again, is a big difference. But if Ryan Keenan was on this team, it would be a much, much different season.
And another thing is, I'm going back to team play still. No one has reached 10 assists this year. For this team. It's just, you need to move the ball to score in lacrosse.
Absolutely.
And part of moving the ball is getting assists. And there's no one who hasn't even reached 10 assists last year. And like I said, Ryan Keenan 18.
Coming up, softball had their home opener this weekend and began MAC play against a struggling St. Peter's team. And Keizaka tied a men's tennis program record. Plus, we have our game of the week. Bobcat Breakdown will resume after this.
It's 9:30 Eastern, and you know what that means. Sports Pause is on the air.
Ball played up the middle. Iman Whalen with a little cheat off the puck. Preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before.
MJ, it is time for our favorite part of the show. It's the top 5 plays of the week, brought to you by B&D Deli, home of the Q-Dog.
Let's talk about the first play you want to break down.
Yeah, let's break it down right away.
But the one name I'm going to throw out there is a freshman, Mika Maples.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
And welcome into Studio 125.
So what? If you score 40 points in a basketball game, we all know you play Quinnipiac Intramurals. We all know you love to shoot the rock.
Well, if you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, what I'm about to say, I guess, is going to be pretty ridiculous in your book. But I'm going to say yes, there is a controversy.
Line, getting ready to punch the ball as it lands right in front of another Monmouth player.
Coming up on hashtag that.
We are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. The women's softball team had 2 doubleheaders this weekend against St. Peter's and Ryder. The Bobcats split the series between St. Peter's and swept Ryder, advancing their record to 3-1 in the conference. We have our own Connor Fortier and Nick Colon here to help break down the softball team and their jammed-packed schedule this past weekend. Guys, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, QU softball off to a fantastic start in conference play right now, and they're actually caught in a 4-way tie for second place, and I'm joined by softball analyst Connor Fortier. Connor, team's buzzing right now, got 7 of its last 8. Do you think they can keep this offensive surge going?
Well, it's going to be tough, realistically, because they're kind of top-heavy when it comes to their offensive production. It's kind of coming out of Rebecca Drake and Miranda Magana. Those are the 2 offensive players that are really stepping up for them this year. Drake right now hitting .389, 3rd in the MAC. Magana hitting .362, that's 6th in the MAC. Absolutely hitting the cover off the ball. When it comes to offensive categories, those 2 players are really dominating the top 10s in the MAC. But the problem is, they can't even crack the top 5 for RBIs. And what that says to me is that players aren't getting on base for them. Players need to get on base, put their good batters, in a good position to put points on the board, and the team isn't really doing that right now. So they may have gotten lucky. Magana has 6 home runs, that's 3rd in the MAC. She digs a long ball, obviously. She has a power hitter, where when it comes to Drake, she's more of the contact hitter. So stuff like that, they need to have people on base for them to concede, for them to keep up this consistency on offense. And when it comes up to those people getting on base, I look at people like Sarah Einbach, Aaron Larson, the utility hitter and the senior alone. Those people, if they get on base and they kind of get in a roll when it comes to the offense, those 2 players can help lift this team up and maybe carry them into the MAC. MAC season coming in.
Looking for seniors to carry the weight. And on the mound, you have two aces getting hot right now. You got the freshman and Abby Long, and you got Mr. Reliable and Casey Herzog. If you had to put one of them out there right now, if it was your choice, who would you put on the mound?
You know, when people look for pitchers, they look at ERAs and they look at wins and losses. And realistically, I don't exactly judge pitchers when it comes down to that. I would go with Casey Herzog. Yes, she has a 3.61 ERA compared to Long's 2.71, and she sports a 5.8 record compared to Long's 7.05. But Herzog, she's pitched more innings. Batters are hitting less off her. She may not be getting the run support really when it comes down. Her batters are hitting 255 against her, where compared to Long, they're hitting 272. And Herzog's a strikeout pitcher. You know, Long is looking for the ground ball. She's looking for the pop-up. She's really playing for her defense, where, you know, when it comes to Herzog, she has 58 strikeouts on the year. That's compared to Long's 34. She's the power pitcher. She's ready to go after teams, and I really think that I would put her in a situation that can really dominate a game rather than someone, if the defense isn't behind them, they may lose a game. So I would go with Herzog in that situation.
Connor Fortier, always up on the latest with the Q softball team. And right back to you, Mike, at the desk.
Thanks, guys. Kei Azaka made headlines this weekend for tying the men's tennis program record for wins with 134 during a doubleheader against Binghamton and Army on Sunday. Chris, Kyle, huge accomplishment for the young man. What does Azaka's accomplishment compare to in other sports?
Chris, do you want to start with this one?
I'll start with this one. So I thought about this for a while. This was a tough question for me to answer. So I think this is like equal to Brian Feldman's reaching 100 points, and let me explain. Let me explain why. All right, I knew you were going to think this is interesting. So obviously, I think we all know that tennis isn't a huge sport like hockey or basketball here, but and maybe most people know we have a tennis team is because it's behind the tennis courts are right behind the library and they're right in front of the rec center. And I'm saying, and lacrosse might not be as big as those sports either, and not a lot of people watch tennis or lacrosse because lacrosse obviously is at Yale with their field being in construction. So what I'm saying is it's kind of like the same because there's not a lot of hype around either of because the lacrosse team's not here and not a lot of hype around the lacrosse team. So don't get me wrong, these are both great accomplishments. Both of these players should be very proud of what they've done here at Quinnipiac. It's just that no one really knows about it because, one, the lacrosse team's not here, and then the tennis team just doesn't get the hype that other sports do. Like, if lacrosse was here, I think it would get a little bit more hype than tennis does, but that's why I think that...
Chris, I got to cut you off. I think you're underestimating just how much this accomplishment
I never said I was underestimating that.
I know, but Brian Feldman's not the first men's lacrosse player to reach 100 points. It's been done before. Kei Azaka is setting a program record. What he's doing is out of this world. And when I have to compare it to something, I compare it to the national landscape of what certain Quinnipiac coaches or athletes have done. And I immediately thought of last year's women's hockey team with Cass Turner setting the Division I first-year coach record for number of wins. She had the most wins as a first-year coach with 30 in one season. And what Kei Azaka is doing is similar in the fact that he is winning. Yes, Feldman is doing a nice job scoring a lot of points, but Azaka is winning for his team. He's leading by example, and it's interesting because he's the only senior on that roster. So he is like a second coach to these younger players, just like Cass Turner is a coach for her women's hockey team. So the way that Azaka leads this team is just very similar to the way Cass Turner leads her team.
And now for our game of the week. Gentlemen, our game of the week is men's lacrosse against Marist. Quinnipiac swept Marist last season, including a victory in the MAC tournament that advanced Quinnipiac to the NCAA tournament. The meeting on Saturday will be the first between the two since last season. And that's all the time we have for...
we got to talk about this game of the week.
All right. I was getting ahead of myself.
I'll start with what I think. So, a great coach like Eric Feketa of the men's lacrosse team isn't going to let his team take this game not seriously, especially when it's two teams right on the bubble for the MAC playoffs. They were so dominant at home last year. I don't see them losing a third game at home, so I got Quinnipiac in this one.
Kyle, agree with you. I don't think Coach Feketa will take this game lightly like he took this show lightly, showing up almost late and not being able to print your notes there. Ty was everywhere. Just had to throw that out there. And yeah, I think Quinnipiac's going to win this game. I think Marist just not having the season they had last year. Quinnipiac wins this game.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have for tonight. For all of our content, visit our website at www.q30television.com and follow us on Twitter at Q30television. Alongside my colleagues Chris Dacey and Kyle Lavasser, I'm Mike Dalton saying so long here on Bobcat Breakdown.